Aya. Narudi.
Karibu Sidney.
Thanks.
Nasemaje?
Zaribu kutafuta bearing. Conversation.
No, but
Another record.
yeah.
You've probably heard about OCD. OCD is a mental health disorder which has two main parts, obsession and compulsion. And people with OCD usually are helpless when they're doing the things that they do. But while so many people are claiming to have OCD, many don't really realize what it's all about. So I asked my friend Sidney, who's one of the greatest people I know, the most amazing guys that you'll ever meet, to just come and for us to talk about OCD and yeah, hear about his story. He was gracious enough to be able to share his struggle with OCD on this episode of Mind+Faith.
But I'm glad to have you kwa Mind+Faith.
It's an amazing podcast, by the way.
Stop.
Seriously, it's a good concept you have here.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that. Just hoping it will help someone. So I guess there are so many anxiety disorders that exist. Like, what is OCD about? Like,
It's a good question. I'm trying to figure out best way to answer it. OCD is like, in layman's, and like what you see, I guess, on TV and a lot of what is, when people say I'm a bit of OCD, they don't really, it's not accurate, because OCD is like, the best analogy I can give is, everyone has intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts is like you standing in a train station and there are many trains passing. The many trains are intrusive thoughts that everyone has. You have so many of the intrusive thoughts that you don't even notice when you have particular thoughts. That's because your brain doesn't latch to those thoughts. But OCD is when your brain latches to particular or each and every thought, not each and every thought, but it latches to the thoughts and treats them as if they are real. So with OCD, you have a fear experience to something that's actually not. The danger is not real, but the fear is real. Does that make sense? And OCD has a wide spectrum of anything can really be a theme. But the main themes that are classified, you have things like harm OCD, where if you have intrusive thoughts, like let's say you're standing behind someone in a staircase, and you have an intrusive thought of pushing them, or something of the sort, or you're standing next to someone alongside the road, and you have the intrusive thought of pushing them to oncoming traffic or something like that. So for every other person, that may be a normal intrusive thought and be like, oh, that's just a stupid thing. I won't pay attention to it. With OCD, your brain latches onto that thought, and it feels like you're literally about to do it. So anxiety ramps up, and you're in a state of fear over something you're not actually going to do. But with OCD, you think that because you've had that thought, it means that you're going to act on it.
so now you respond to it by trying to prevent it in every way possible.
Yes, and so the thought or the theme, whichever it is, if it's going to be harm theme, and there are many other themes I'm sure we'll talk about, but that thought or that theme is what is called the obsession. The things that you're doing to prevent yourself from doing it, that's a compulsion. Those safety-seeking behaviors. And then the repetitive action of doing those compulsions over and over again to the point where it's consuming your day and your time, that's a disorder. So with OCD, you are constantly doing compulsions to protect yourself from something that's initially or essentially not dangerous. But because you're having a fear response, because you're having anxiety and it feels real, you're trying to protect yourself over and over again. So that's the disorder. So we're in a vicious loop where you're triggered by an intrusive thought or triggered by a situation, and then you try and protect yourself from that situation. But the problem is, the debilitating part of the disorder is, the more you try and protect yourself, the more you're reinforcing in your brain that is a dangerous situation,
thing.
and the more the anxiety spikes.
So, in short, everyone has the obsession part.
Yes.
But not everyone has the compulsion part.
The compulsion is a problem. Compulsion is the fuel that fires the disorder, I guess, and the anxiety. Yeah.
For you, like, did you always have OCD, ama like, where did it all? When did you come across this whole thing? Is it something that you always knew about?
Okay, once I got my bad trigger was in 2019, or when OCD, I'd say, consumed my life, was in 2019. But after that point, when I got to know that, this is what OCD is, I could now, in retrospect, like, remember moments, like, since I was 10, when I had OCD. For sure, I've had it all my life, as far as I know and I'm concerned. I've had it all my life. But I only came to know that, these things that I was doing were OCD after I had my bad episode in 2019, because that's what got me to the point where I was like, okay, I have a problem. And then when I started, when I started seeking for help and all that, that's when I now realized that since I was possibly 10, I've been dealing with it, and I've been doing a lot of compulsions in my mind. So I'd say basically all my life, but it actually really became a significant problem in 2019.
Do you feel like maybe I shouldn't have found out? Like, was it easier when you didn't know, like, that you have OCD? Now you know, and it's hard.
It's a good question, because OCD preys on like, the more you know, the more you have. I feel like the more knowledge you have about certain things, the more content OCD has to kind of trap you in. So this is gonna sound a bit twisted, but I hope you get. So there's something called there's a theme of OCD called meta OCD, where you obsess about OCD itself. And sometimes I get into loops where I obsess about obsessing about OCD. So and that results that's a resultant of, like, I feel like me knowing about OCD. So because I know that, for example, what a compulsion is, or what I've been doing to try and protect myself, and the way you treat OCD is you get rid of the compulsion. So you allow yourself to feel anxious over that particular thing, and your brain over a period of time learns, or they say habituation, or habituates to the fact that thing is not a threat, and so the anxiety drops. Problem is, when you're in this vicious OCD loop, you can start obsessing, or which, like, something I'm still, like, battling till now, is you start obsessing about, was that a compulsion I just did? And then the problem with OCD is the moment you try and figure out if that was a compulsion or not, you're already in the loop. So you won't get an answer, because OCD thrives on you trying to find certainty. And you're not supposed to find certainty. You're supposed to lean in the uncertainty and lean in the discomfort of the uncertainty. So because OCD doesn't appeal to, like, it doesn't respond to reason. Like, you can't reason with OCD. It's like dealing with a nagging baby. They're just nagging you, and the only thing you can do is let them nag until the point when they're tired and they'll go to sleep or something. Yeah. So to answer your question, like, I feel like it's a bittersweet thing. I got to know, and now I know what I need to do but also I feel like it's now exposed me to a myriad of situations that I didn't initially deal with. I feel like sometimes I feel ignorance is bliss.
Let me take you back. Kuna kitu umesema about certainty and certainty. But before even that, you said something about 10 years old. You started remembering things that are happening so long ago
Yeah.
that now they are making sense why they would happen.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing?
Yeah. My first OCD episode by the way, that I can remember vividly was I went to church and I had the thought, I had the intrusive thought of how do we know God exists? It's a normal thought for anyone who's in the Christian walk or spiritual journey. It's a question you've definitely asked yourself at one point or the other. Problem is with OCD, it's not just a thought. Problem with OCD, OCD has a way of, it's like, I don't know if it's everyone with OCD or it's OCD in itself. OCD has a way of drawing you into this black and white thinking, which is not indicative of how life is. So for me to have a thought of like, how do we know God exists? Automatically, that translates in my brain to, I don't have faith in God. Right? And so I started, one of my biggest compulsions, which I think I've been doing for the longest time, is it's like it's like I'm having a discussion with my brain where I'm trying to convince my brain that I actually have faith. So I'm like, my mind, it's like, I have faith, but OCD is like, and OCD always wins the moment you get into the moment you get into a discussion with OCD, it always wins. So it's like, no, but because it doesn't appeal to reason, and anxiety is like quicksand. The more you fight anxiety, the stronger it becomes, the stronger it consumes you. So I remember being in church and I was having that thought, and I was like, I don't have faith, I don't believe in God. And I'm like, no, but I believe in God. And then, of course, the more you try to convince yourself, the more you're not convinced. Then I kept wondering, how is everyone in church singing hymns? Don't they doubt? Don't they question?
It's like it's just you.
Yeah. So it felt like it was just me.
So you have to prove yourself.
Yes, I have to prove. That's the thing. I feel like I have to prove to myself that I have faith. And so sometimes you go above and beyond to do things to just prove to yourself, which is crazy now that I think about it, because I'm like, it's me. It's not like I'm convincing someone else. But I remember it was so overwhelming. I couldn't sit in church. I had to get out of church and sometimes walk around just to distract myself, because the thoughts were it's like they were shouting. It's like it was too loud for me to concentrate. Lasted for about, church for sure was a trigger. Anything religious was a trigger, and it lasted for about a month or two, and then I think it kind of dissipated for a while, for about 3 years, until Form 1 was actually technically my first big OCD episode, where now in retrospect, now and in hindsight, I can be like, oh yeah, that was definitely OCD. But like with regards to my first episode was there, the church one.
2019 was perhaps one of his hardest times and what we'd call a breaking point for him. So I really wanted to find out what really happened in this year and what happened for him to get to the place where he thought, all was lost.
So OCD has this, one of the big triggers of OCD is like change. When you go through a drastic change, and again, which is in Form 1 for sure, which was also my trigger, was because I was going to boarding for the first time. And that was a big change for me. For the first time, I was not going to be like at home with family. And 2019 is when I was supposed to I was going to the UK for my master's. And so that was a big change. Even more, it was compounded because I didn't initially want to go abroad. I never actually wanted. I wanted to go visit, but I never wanted to go and stay there for like a long period of time. So for sure, this change was compounded not because I was just going somewhere different, but because I didn't even initially want to go there. And I think something I've heard many people with OCD say online, where it literally feels like your brain just snaps. it feels like a switch by the. It doesn't. It's not something that's gradual. It's like you're normal, and then you're not normal. Like you just feel like it's like a tick in your brain, and you're like, oh no, the madness has begun. Like it's usually I can even remember the split second like something that happened. So there was a particular, I think it was on Monday. I think it was on Monday. Yeah. Like on that Monday, it just hit me that like in a few weeks, that's it. You're going to like this is a huge change, and my brain just once, like I said, just snapped, and now introduced a theme that I never had before.
Being human is already difficult to deal with such issues such as OCD and any other mental disorder. And I just wonder how much more difficult it is to be a Christian, and in this case, an Adventist dealing with OCD. And so I wanted to find out, how did Sidney handle his mental health disorder while still being a Christian, with all the pressure, and now what kind of values did he apply to this that were important to his progress?
For me, no, but I'd see how it would be hard for someone else. I'd say for me, no, because generally as a person, I'm not one to shy away from conversations, right? So if I'm going through something, I'm definitely going to talk about it, because I'm seeking help. I need to find a solution to something I'm going through. So I'm not one to shy away from things I go through, as no matter what it is. I think I'm cognizant of the fact that this is my human experience. Most of these things, or some of these things, especially if it's not something that I'm particularly responsible for, like if it's something that just occurred to me without me doing anything, then I need to address it. But I could see how this would be challenging for any Christian, but not even leave alone an Adventist, because for time immemorial, I think anything mental health has been always shelved under the same section as possession, for example. So when you're having mental challenges, the solution for most Christians is, hey, you need to pray, you need to you're possessed. It's really the same way you treat someone who's possessed. Like you feel, or you're told that you basically have no faith, or you basically like that sort of thing. But most of the mental health challenges you're facing,
Do not be anxious about anything.
most of the mental and those verses apply when you're not, in my opinion, when you don't have a disorder. When you're talking about you in your normal, like you do not have any diagnosis for any disorder, you're not unwell, the verses apply. But you don't, by not saying that the verses are not as powerful, but it's different, because it's like the brain is a muscle, I guess, if I'm not wrong. It's just it's a muscle, like it's an organ like any other organ. You wouldn't say the same to someone, for example, who has any other illness. For example, someone gets a heart attack, or someone gets this sort of thing. You'd not be.
It's not the same as someone who's healthy.
Exactly.
Who's going to the gym.
Exactly. So for and prayer works. I believe in prayer a lot. But they actually not but similarly to how when you pray for other elements in other things in your life, if you're praying for a job, if you're praying, you do not pray and sleep, right? You always pray and you start making applications. You pray and do something. Even when you're unwell, you pray and you seek medical. Yeah, because the answer to your prayer could as well be that doctor that you're going to see. You've been praying, yes, and maybe the answer is that doctor that you need to see, right? And I think same thing for mental health. I don't know if it's affected it's affected my it's definitely attacked my faith, that's for sure. In terms of, like, in those low moments when you're questioning God, you're like, hey,
Where are you in all of this?
yeah, like, may your will be done, but hey,
This one.
this is, it's as in, you know the thing when people say, I don't know, like, I'm tired of being a strong soldier, like,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes I ask myself a lot, I'm like, hey God, you must have a lot of faith in me. If you think I can withstand this, umeniaminia. And sijui kana nataka kuendelea kuniaminia hivi, as in just, I've learned, if there's a lesson I was to learn, can it just be over now, you know?
And while you were at UK, like, was it really bad? Like, was it now like an extension of the breakdown now? Because I guess you are alone,
Yeah.
far away from your friends, and
Yeah, honestly, it got really, I don't know, the miracle is that I finished masters. That's a miracle by there, because I was not in the right frame of mind to do it totally. It was just a lot of panic attacks and anxiety attacks and just to even define it more. It's just because, like I said, like I was saying, at the time when I got the bad trigger, my like the theme was like I had so much bad anxiety attacks and panic attacks because the point where like I didn't want sometimes to just see knives and something like that. But another thing that I've realized like OCD did is OCD gives meaning to things that don't have meaning. For example, right now I wish I can have anxiety, just normal anxiety, like everyone experiences anxiety, without my mind running to the harm theme.
and how you can prevent it.
Yes. So it's like in my mind, it's like a nightmare because even if I'm triggered even if I'm anxious about something else, my mind automatically goes, "Oh, you're anxious." Then it switches to the harm theme. I don't even get to relate to the thing that originally triggered me. And that was now like is when I've realized that like I have what they call fear of fear. And the fear of fear is because my fear I feel like personally, I don't know, but I feel like my fear latched on to that theme. So it's like I feel like it's like a trauma response actually. It's like anything that resembles any bit of anxiety, even discomfort like this, my mind goes back to the first time I got triggered in 2019 and how bad that experience was. And so automatically my mind goes to, oh, you're going back there. It's going to happen. The thing you fear a lot is going to happen. And so even when I was in UK, like it was constant anxiety. And it's not even anxiety. Like my therapist keeps saying, your OCD just gives meaning to anxiety. Your anxiety shouldn't mean anything. You should just be, oh, I'm anxious. I'm just anxious. But it's not like when you're happy, you get reminded of a time you were happy. But my mind does that thing where it's like I relive that experience every single time I get anxious. You get so like it was very catastrophic. Still is. I'm still trying to shed off that thing, but it's crazily hard. But I would say that moment even in the UK was when like my faith was definitely attacked, if I should say so.
I remember the story you told me about some day, Saturday, like when you said about, you prayed to God and you're like, God, just give me one word, And then the preacher, like preaching, like towards the end of the sermon, during the call, if there's one word, what did that mean to you? Like when a prayer like that was answered, like it wasn't like a big thing, like something has popped up, but it was something you really needed at that time. So did that mean anything to you during those harder times when, hey, Mungu, where are you, like in all of this?
It did. It did because that particular week I'd said I'm not going to church. I had this thing where I was like, I felt like I was disappointed or mad at God. Me, a human being, as in I don't even. But I was like, I'm mad at God, and I was like, I'm not going to church this week. I just need to figure out what the hell is happening in, like, I hadn't lost hope, but I didn't have hope either. It's a very weird place where I'm like, I just, for now, I just don't know. Let me just, I was like, I just want to stay indoors. So for that thing, for it to happen that way is, first of all, told me a lot about, I learned a lot about God through that experience, because it's like I had to be in the position where I could only rely on God. It's like it was either God coming through or that's it. Like at that particular point in life, in my that particular point, there was no solution. There was no other way I could have felt, because I was literally alone. I remember it was winter. First of all, like it was just, the day is dark majority of the time. It's like God was either helping me or I don't know. I didn't have any other solution. So I learned that maybe sometimes we have to go through certain situations to the point where it's only God can help us. So that I also feel, so that we don't mistake the help
For some
other things. So I'm like, because it was so clear that this was God, so extremely clear. Like the circumstances under which that week happened was so clear. I couldn't mistake it for another person. Like I couldn't say that, oh, it's a coincidence. I couldn't say all those things. It was evident. It was like I prayed for this. It came and it was a prayer of desperation. It's one of those prayers that's not even premeditated. Like you think about the words. No, I was like, I just rambled. I didn't even think through about what I was saying, and it came exactly like that.
Do you feel like generally, have you ever thought that generally sometimes the OCD is that, like that situation where it's only God who can help you, like?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think there's anyone else who can help me through it. Like it's not God. Sometimes I feel like one of my biggest prayers is to have a closer walk with God. And sometimes I'm like, man, is this it? Did I? Was I ready? I know. I was like, was I ready for this? As in, and one thing I said I'd never do is complain to God. I don't. Sometimes I don't know if it's lament. Sometimes I just tell God, I'm hurt. This is hard. I'm grateful. And after saying that, I'd be like, but I'm grateful. I know you're the one person who has my best interests at heart. So if you think I should go through this, just give me the strength. Then don't take it away. Actually, I've been saying a lot lately, like the past 1 year, God, don't let this be a lesson wasted. If I'm supposed to learn something through this experience, please don't let me go through this pain just to come out the same. Yeah. Like, let me just learn something, and let me have that moment where I can look back and see and say, thank God I went through that, because I've learned something. But yeah.
Often, people don't get what you're going through. And I'm sure for Sidney, so many people haven't understood what his struggle has been like. But I'd really like to hear from him, and I'd really like to know from you, from your hardest times, whether people really misunderstood you. And it's common. I know for me, people have misunderstood when I'm going through my tough times. And people give you solutions that don't even apply to your situation, and tell you stuff like God will take care of it and it'll be okay, which, in as much as they are good answers, they are not out of a place of sincerity most times. So how does Sidney handle all of this? How does he take, this challenge and still battling this to become a better person and hoping to become better and better with each step? That's going to be on the second part of this episode of OCD here on Mind+Faith.